30 seconds and counting. 25 seconds and counting. We are still go. 20 seconds. Guidance alert. The guidance system now going internal. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good, very early morning to most of my viewers, and good evening to viewers out on the West Coast and such in the Western Hemisphere, and good evening to my viewers in Australia, New Zealand, the Pacific Rim. Welcome to the Angry Astronaut. I'm really dragging this morning, let me tell you, although it's not really all that early. It is only just now 6 a.m. In the UK, so not terribly early, but nevertheless, just getting things going here. And we have people checking in. I know someone checked in from Australia. Thank you very much. We also have Titusville, Florida, so obviously Henry watching this launch or about to watch it. From where you are, I am envious, to be honest. 4 Marks, hello, and thank you very much for joining us. Really do appreciate folks. Boy, over 100 people joining already. And ULA will not be going live for half an hour. Hello, California. Hello, India. Thank you very much for checking in. Really do appreciate that. Hello, Hong Kong, Joe Pilot, an awesome viewer who came to my lecture in Toronto, a pilot in Hong Kong, actually, but originally from Canada, and he came to see me, so that was pretty cool. We have Texas and San Antonio, and we have West Virginia, and we have Boca, and hello, London. Thank you so much for joining us, and Wexford, Ireland. We have Denmark checking in, and we have Death Valley, California, and Bobby from India. Thank you very much for checking in today, India. And we have Poland. Hello, Mexico. Really appreciate you joining in. Hello, Antonym, supporting us as always. We have Michigan and Colorado. Hello, my home state of Colorado. Then we have South Africa, which is my daughter's favorite place in the world. Gulf Coast near Stennis. Hello, Stennis. And we have Monument, Colorado, the place that gets the worst snow on the Front Range. Seattle, Austin, Ontario, California, Canada, Alameda, boy, all over the place. Over 140 people already checking in. French Kanakistan, more Michigan. It's great to see all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. So yeah, for those of you who watched my preview, not that long ago, less than 12 hours ago, talked a lot about all the different payloads on board. Here we're going to be showing you in a little bit, whenever our producer can get it ready, a little clip from Astro Liz, who has a payload on this rocket, and she sent me a little message today, and I am so happy to have received that. It was an awesome thing. Go ahead and pull the trigger, producer. That's just adorable. Once again, Astro Liz with the first payload from a child ever on its way to the moon. I am so happy indeed. Antonym, thank you so much for the super chat. Really do appreciate that. Irnan, thank you so much for the super chat. Predictions from Hyde, I 90%. I think everything's going to go very well. I mean, we could have a scrub theoretically, because if anything looks even slightly off on this rocket, Tory Bruno is going to call the whole damn thing off. There's no way that we're going to be taking any chances with this launch. Currently, ULA will do their utmost to minimize any danger. If they have to delay until the next launch window opens up for the moon, they will definitely do that. Go ahead, ASN. am made man. Geez, that's a good question. I'll have to give that some thought, actually. I can't wait for the upcoming Dream Chaser launch. That would say without the glasses. Yeah, the thing of it is, I can see without glasses. The main thing is that my glasses got broken when I was in Boca Chica, and I've actually been waiting to get glasses here in Britain because they are substantially less expensive than getting them in the United States. And actually, well, I actually have an appointment on the 14th of this month to go get glasses. I guess frames are as low as 15 pounds, and then the eye exam is like 25 pounds. I can't believe it. I mean, it's really cheap, especially given the fact that I'm not a citizen or anything. That's pretty impressive. So in any event. And also, thanks to the incredible support of one of my viewers who gave me a loan, actually, I was able to get my prescription, my everything set up for my medication. That all got set up as well as a result of that generous act. So in any event, going to be focusing on paying him back as well. So lots of fantastic people being very supportive to me right now. I'm super happy about that. Yeah, 6 Dream Chasers planned. I think that I have a feeling that we are most probably going to be seeing more Dream Chasers even than that. I think Dream Chaser has an enormous future ahead of it, an incredible future, simply because of all the unique things that it can do. The capability to deliver its payloads to any place that has, a serviceable lengthy runway like Newquay Airport in Britain. This means that it's going to be a very flexible spaceship. Capable of bringing big payloads for customers all over the world down to Earth. That's exciting stuff, and super happy about that. So yeah, I think that and by the way, I do intend to be in the States for the Dream Chaser launch. Don't intend to miss that. So not exactly sure how I'll be reporting on it. There's a good big part of me that actually wants to be at mission control in Denver with Sierra Space covering it rather than at the Cape. We'll see how all that goes. I am currently in talks with Sierra Space to see what the best way of covering that is, but I'm super excited about that. So yeah, there may be less problems with spacecraft than there have been with Boeing airplanes. I agree with that completely. Unreal. We have Philippines checking in. That's cool. So yeah, neat stuff. All right. Boy, I tell you, it's doing my best still to wake up at the moment. But thus far, prop load has gone smoothly. In at Cape Canaveral, there have been no problems to speak of up to this point. Tory Bruno was actually underneath the rocket a few hours ago. Sent us a really cool picture of the BE-4 engines, the 2 solid rocket boosters that are on this thing. Only 2 solid rocket boosters being necessary to drive the Peregrine lander to the moon. The latest update from ULA came 9 minutes ago, and we have no issues as of as of the moment. I also have contacts at ULA, although, you know, their availability to talk to me is probably pretty limited, but nevertheless. Oh, I just got a message actually from one of my contacts at ULA, who is on her way to the office, probably there by now, actually in Denver, Colorado, to watch the launch with her colleagues in Denver. So she did say that she would do her best to keep us in the loop on what's going on with the launch. If anything, if there is anything positive or negative to report post-launch, she has said that she's going to do her best to keep us engaged to the best of her ability. Of course, there's only so much that she's allowed to tell us, but very cool, and we are very grateful for her willingness to do this. Okay. Maximum amount of SRBs, Henry, that Vulcan can handle is 6. And with those 6 solid rocket boosters, it can send a substantial amount of payload, approximately 15 metric tons, all the way to translunar injection. It's got some pretty impressive capabilities. And they're looking at upgrading it even further. For example, a triple core Vulcan Centaur, similar to the Delta IV Heavy, except a triple core Vulcan, similar kind of design and all that. That is something else that ULA has planned for the future, which will, of course, improve capabilities. Another thing that that ULA has planned for Vulcan is low Earth orbit optimization. In other words, a specific setup to get a larger amount of payload just to low Earth orbit. I have a feeling this is probably competition for against Falcon 9, that sort of thing, the capability, and against Falcon Heavy, the capability of delivering a lot of payload in a big fairing out to low Earth orbit. So they're working on that as well. Of course, we also have reusability coming down the pike for Vulcan, the what's called smart reusability. Smart reusability is using the lofted heat shield to re-enter, to detach those engines and re-enter the atmosphere, utilizing the lofted and parachutes for a splashdown in the ocean, and then to recover the engines that way. A very unique and innovative way of handling reusability. And the advantage to it, of course, is that you don't have to use any propellant. You don't have to use any fuel in order to carry out that type of reusability. You can use all the fuel in the booster, getting the maximum amount of payload out into space, and then get your engines back, which represents about 70% of the cost of any rocket. So that definitely makes a big difference. So we got that coming. We have the Centaur 5 is already an advanced upper stage, advanced second stage, capable of deploying multiple payloads into multiple orbits. Of course, relighting the engines. They have new versions of the RL-10 from Aerojet Rocketdyne in the Centaur 5. And delivering substantially improved thrust and a lot more flexibility. Leon, thank you very much for your support from Mexico. Really, really appreciate that. And that is your first super chat ever on a live stream. Well, thanks, Leon. I really appreciate your support. That's awesome. So the launch is, yes, roughly an hour away. ULA will be going live in about 16 minutes. We'll be bringing you some of that broadcast, but probably not all of it, because they have copyrighted music on there probably. And with copyrighted music, you have to, obviously that's going to mess the stream up if I have that on my side. So hopefully we can avoid too much of that. But of course, we will be showing you the images from ULA. Once again, everything seems to be going smoothly at the moment. I am checking, of course. Okay, we are currently at the T-minus 7 minute point and holding. That does not mean that they're launching in 7 minutes. What it means is that they are entering into a planned 60-minute built-in hold as they prepare for the launch opportunity. The launch is scheduled for Eastern Standard Time, 2 hours, 18 minutes, 38 seconds a.m. 7:18:38 a.m. here in the UK. So looking forward to that happening, let me tell you. So yeah, everything seems to be going very smoothly so far. No real issues, no weather problems, as you know, as far as we can ascertain. I'll tell you, everything that could have been done to try to make this launch go smoothly has been done. That being the case, though, this is space. This is a new rocket. These are new engines. So many new things on this rocket. This is not an upgraded Atlas. This is a very new rocket with a lot of new components. Now, of course, these components have all been thoroughly tested to failure, but that doesn't mean that they are going to that doesn't mean that that everything's going to go smoothly. I mean, we're just as close as we can get. Ehrman, thank you so much for the $5 super chat estimation. How long will it be before we see smart reuse configuration on Vulcan? I don't think it'll take 4 to 5 years. ULA has said that the first test of smart reusability, the first practical tests, are going to be this year. So I think that there's a good chance that they're going to try to get smart reusability into service by 2025. Again, all of this is assuming that everything goes smoothly with this launch and a couple of upcoming launches. I mean, you cannot overstate the importance of these upcoming launches. We've got, of course, this one. Then we have Dream Chaser. Can't really afford an anomaly on that one either. And then immediately after Dream Chaser, you have the first U.S. Space Force mission. You don't want to lose that one either. So, you know, ULA finds themselves in this unenviable position of desperately needing everything to go right, not only with the first launch, but really with the first 3 in order to keep things on track. Now, in the past, this was something that ULA was very accustomed to doing. You know, I mean, they haven't had a serious anomaly in over 2 decades. That being the case, though, it's just very, very different now compared to previous launches, simply because there are so many new components, new engines, really new engines on both the first and second stage. Again, the Aerojet Rocketdyne RL-10s, also new. Improved performance, improved design. With all of those things comes the potential for an anomaly. Now, Aerojet Rocketdyne designs arguably the most solid engines on the planet. I mean, the RS-25s during the service history of the space shuttle never, ever failed. Not once. Even on the launch of Columbia. I mean, that's unreal. Talking over 3 decades of launches from engines that got used over and over and over again, and they never had a failure of the RS-25 during the service history. That's just mind-blowing. So that being the case, I think that, you know, it's pretty safe to say that the RL-10s will probably perform very well. And again, they need to relight. We've got multiple burns taking place in the launch plan. You know, ULA has chosen a complicated mission for their maiden flight, let me tell you. It could have been more complicated. I would have been a lot more worried if they had to dump off those 2 Kuiper satellites that they were scheduled to dump off and then tried to make it to the moon after that. I think that would have added a lot of challenge to the first launch. I mean, the Centaur 5 is designed to do that. It's designed to dump off payloads in one orbit and then, push on to another. It's an advanced upper stage. It's capable of doing things like that. But man, I wouldn't have wanted to test its capabilities on the first launch. So I think that that this improves the chances for success. Sergeant Salty says it's an important launch for America. Yeah, and it's a shame the national media hasn't spoken a word about it. You're absolutely right. This is the first American mission that is going to land on the moon in over half a century. As I said during my preview earlier, less than 12 hours ago, the Indians have been to the moon since we have. The Russians have been to the moon since we have. The Chinese, obviously, have been to the moon several times since the United States has. This is the first time that the U.S. is going to attempt to land on the lunar surface since Gene Cernan said goodbye to the moon all those years ago. I mean, this is a big damn moment, a huge moment. And not only that, this isn't really NASA doing it. This is actually a private mission that NASA is hitching a ride on. And this is the acid test for NASA's plans to utilize private companies to help facilitate the Artemis goals. Because all of these initial CLIPS missions, these scouting missions heading to the lunar surface, none of these are NASA missions per se. They are instead private missions that have NASA payloads along for the ride. Yeah, exactly. As my producer just mentioned, they're a customer like anybody else on this ride. They're no different than Astro Liz. By the way, I think a lot of new people have joined on. Producer, whenever you can get it queued up, let's see. I got a special message from Astro Liz this morning. I'd love to share it with you guys one more time.
Hi, hungry astronaut, we're going to the moon.
That is Astro Liz, who is the first child to have a payload headed for the moon in human history. So happy and grateful to have received that message today. And I'll tell you, neat stuff. Very, very neat stuff coming today. I'm feeling positive. I'm feeling optimistic. But again, we all know how space works. We all know what happened with the JAXA launch last year. The H3 experiencing a devastating anomaly that really delivered a nasty gut punch to JAXA. And then, of course, we had Virgin Orbit's anomaly that led to the total collapse and dismemberment of the company. So, we all know the severity, the consequences involved with failure in situations like this. This isn't like a SpaceX Starship mission, which of course are very important, but they can lose one of those right now in the early stages of testing because of the way SpaceX does things, because SpaceX, tests out in the field instead of testing every component to failure before they launch. Losing rockets is just part of the deal. And I'll tell you, I think ULA would have been a whole lot more comfortable with this thing if they had a chance to launch a dummy payload first. If they had actually been able to get this rocket into service when they were supposed to, or sometime around the time that they were supposed to, they could have done that. In fact, I kind of argue that my name on the on the plaque. Boy, you know something, John? I don't even know. Dear God, that's embarrassing. But it should be on there somewhere, I think. In any event, I'll tell you, a lot to keep up with, and given the state of my mind right now, I think it's just a lot of haze at the moment. Eamon, thank you so much. Can Peregrine land Navajo protection money? Well, fortunately, the Navajo Nation has absolutely no influence over this mission whatsoever. For those of you unfamiliar with that, the Navajo Nation, all of a sudden at the 11th hour, probably because they didn't even know that this mission was happening until they saw it in the news, and they all of a sudden got mad about how there's going to be human remains on the Peregrine mission, and it's going to be on the moon. And to them, that's a desecration. Well, okay. But you know what? Nobody has a right. I don't care if it's the Navajo Nation or the Catholic Church or Scientology or whatever the hell. Nobody has the right to impose their religious beliefs on anybody else. And that is essentially what they were trying to do by trying to stop this mission or to get NASA to delay this mission. Now, NASA, of course, had no authority to delay this mission because this is a private mission. They're just customers. There's no way that they can stop it. Well, it could in theory, but it wouldn't be legal. So in any event, I'm disappointed that this even was an issue. I understand, everybody's got their own religious beliefs, but they have no right to try to impose them on anybody else. Simple as that. Name should be on the lander, says John. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Honestly, I think it is. When I was at Astrobotic, they actually had me put in some information. I'm pretty sure that it's all in there. I have to admit those things. I guess I just don't really keep track of them as much. I mean, I get my name on a lot of things that are headed to space, I suppose. Just because I always make sure to submit everything. So, to me, it's just what's happening right now is what's important. We've got, we've got this very important mission. We have an excited young lady who has a payload on this mission. I'm so happy for her, and I am so hoping that everything goes well. In some ways, is having a daughter myself, in some ways, I think that that's the most important thing to me right now personally, is that this thing goes smoothly for her sake. I would really like to see things go well. Better scrub than a boom. Yes, indeed, Rockin' Robin, you're right about that. So again, we continue to check on the status. I am, let's see, what do we got here? Okay. Okay, there's the splash screen is live with ULA. We're going to do our best. By the way, for those of you who are in the southeastern portion of the United States, it is very possible that you will be able to see this launch transpire. As far away as North Carolina, the Cape Hatteras areas of North Carolina, coastal regions of North Carolina, and even a little further north than that, it should be visible. And then if we're talking almost all of Florida should be able to see this launch. Also, all of the Bahamas obviously should be able to see this launch. In addition to that, the vast majority of Cuba, with the exception of Havana. Havana seems to be outside the viewing area, but everything else, most of Cuba seems to fall within that viewing area as well. The live stream is getting turned up by ULA. We will do our best to bring all of this to you. This should be super exciting. I can't wait. And Currently, we also, by the way, we are also joined by some members of our team. Anton Nim, who's has done great work for my channel. We also have our producer, ASN in Yorkshire. Fantastic support from him as always. And then we have our friend Darth Rust. He makes all of my thumbnails and also provides me with a lot of my technical information. So we've got some great supporters here with us today on this extremely important launch. Critical launch indeed, coming up not only for ULA, not only for Astrobotic, but for NASA's plans to return to the moon, for a huge number of different customers who have payloads on this rocket, for a young girl from the UK who has a payload on this rocket. Neat stuff. Neat stuff coming up here soon for this launch. I'll tell you, I'm getting worked up right now. And we still have a while before launch. All right, here we go. ULA is turning up their content. Of course, there's only so much we can bring you because of copyrighted music. But again, they're describing the CLIPS mission. Oh, they just cut that out. They're showing Vulcan Centaur going up, and I know that animation. I use it all the time. It's actually a Dream Chaser animation. There, of course, is Peregrine and the Commercial Lunar Payload Services, NASA's big plan to scout out the moon. And this will be the first mission. Producer, let me know if we can bring anything from ULA. Okay, we're going to go ahead and bring the audio up from ULA.
Us on the Space Coast of Florida.
And I'll be including commentary periodically, just so you know.
CLIPS is short for Commercial Lunar Payload Services, a model in which NASA contracts space on commercial missions to send science and technology to the moon. These deliveries will
Producer, do they have the audio now?
The moon than ever before, and will help us prepare for the first woman and first person of color to land on the lunar surface under NASA's Artemis program. For today's launch, NASA selected Astrobotic to deliver its 5 lunar instruments. This is the first mission for the Peregrine spacecraft. Today is also the first launch of ULA's new Vulcan rocket, so a lot of firsts today. Now we have a 45-minute launch window that opens at 2:18 and 38 seconds Eastern time. But you'll notice that clock on the upper left-hand corner of your screen. It says T-minus 7 minutes. That's because the ULA team is in a planned hold. Basically, they baked extra time into the countdown to make sure everything's good for launch. You'll see that clock start to count down again when we are actually 7 minutes to the opening of the launch window. Helping me to share today's commentators from both our commercial partners. We have Astrobotic's Olivia Trapler. But first, let's start with ULA's.
Is that us, producer?
Thanks, Megan, and good morning. I'm Amanda Sterling, a structural engineer and program management leader at United Launch Alliance. I'm joining you from the Advanced Spaceflight Operations Center at Cape Canaveral. This is an exciting place to be as the ULA team counts down to liftoff of Vulcan's inaugural flight. Right now, the Vulcan booster and Centaur upper stage are fueled while the launch team continues final preps. As Megan mentioned, the launch count remains in a planned hold. The ULA team is currently not working any issues, and we're on track for an on-time launch at 2:18:38 a.m. Eastern. Coming up, Space Launch Delta 45 will provide a final weather briefing in about 15 minutes. At the moment, our weather looks good, with just a 15% probability of violation through the 45-minute launch window we have available this morning. Now, I'll send it back to you, Megan.
Thank you, Amanda. It's great to hear that 85% go for tonight. Now let's take a closer look at the Peregrine 1 spacecraft. It's about 6.2 feet tall and 8.2 feet wide, made mostly of aluminum and carbon fiber. The 4 landing legs have a honeycomb design on the inside to absorb Peregrine's touchdown on the lunar surface. Its solar panel is mounted to the top of the spacecraft. The payload decks at the center will carry 20 payloads from 7 countries. And finally, it has over 1 mile of cables and wiring. Our broadcast on NASA TV today will cover Peregrine separation around 3:09 a.m. Eastern Time, followed by acquisition of signal shortly after. For more on the company that built Peregrine, here's Astrobotics' Olivia Chapla.
Thanks, Megan, and thanks to all of you for tuning in.
Hey,
I'm Olivia
yeah.
Chapla, and I can't tell you how pleased I am to be here representing Astrobotic as the Director of Marketing and Communications. We're a small but mighty team of about 260 people. Together, our real goal is to make space accessible to the world, and today we are particularly focused on the moon. Astrobotic built the Peregrine spacecraft as part of our fleet of lunar landers designed to deliver cargo, called payloads, to the moon's surface. Over the past 3 years, I've watched the Astrobotic team build this Peregrine spacecraft launching today. I've been there alongside them during the long days, late nights, and for the ridiculously early mornings when we shipped Peregrine to Cape Canaveral in preparation for launch today. I am personally so excited to be here because this mission really marks the beginning of a historic time. The United States hasn't soft landed on the moon since NASA's Apollo program more than 50 years ago, and only a handful of countries have ever successfully landed on the lunar surface. Astrobotic's aim is to not only return the American flag to the moon again with Peregrine, but also to start regular commercial lunar deliveries to the moon's surface. Now, let's hear a little more from our founder and CEO, John Thornton.
Astrobotic's goal is to make space.
Okay, I've had to mute at this point because it's possible that we could have copyrighted Astrobotic. Yeah, they're bringing up some of their animations here and such. There could be some copyrighted stuff here. Again, Astrobotic would not enforce that copyright against me, but at the same time, sometimes these things can just be automated and happen automatically and mess things up. So best to avoid that possibility. Astrobotic are fantastic people. Olivia, actually, who we just saw a while ago, she and I talk on a regular basis. She's a fantastic representative for the company. Very, very knowledgeable, and a wonderful, definitely a great person to talk to. So in any event, and she, by the way, was responsible for inviting me to the press event where the Peregrine lander was first unveiled. She reached out to me personally to ask me to come. And I'll tell you, I was super thrilled about that because I was the only YouTube spaceflight person who was actually there. To be fair, Tim Dodd had somebody there, but Tim was not actually there himself. I was the only one actually physically there. So that was pretty cool. So wonderful opportunity to get to see Peregrine unveiled for the first time. I think, yep, we're switching over. I think we can bring you the audio again from ULA.
Model will hopefully mean frequent, rapid, and affordable access to the moon.
Oh, geez, they keep doing this. Sorry, guys. They keep bringing stuff that could be copyrighted and mess up my broadcast. Sorry about that. Cosmic Grandpa said that was Pittsburgh. Yes. Astrobotic is based in Pittsburgh. They are part of an overall effort to make Pittsburgh a major spaceflight hub for the world. And I'll tell you, they're having a lot of success with that. There are many people engaged in the world of spaceflight, many people working in various space industries in Pittsburgh now. They've done a really good transition from steel industry, from heavy manufacturing over into the space industry, and really exciting stuff. As a matter of fact, if you live in that particular area, they have the Moonshot Museum that is attached to the Astrobotic facilities there. I strongly advise you to go visit them because they'll give you all the information on what Pittsburgh is doing to become a major part of the new space industry that is flourishing right now. Super exciting stuff coming indeed. Okay, so yeah, sorry about that, Cosmic Grandpa. Yeah, I actually did a lecture in Pittsburgh. Had some awesome people come to. I've had 2 visits actually. All right, if we can bring back the audio, we'll do our best to do that.
The NASA Science Mission Directorate. Good morning, Joel.
Hi, good morning, Megan.
So talk to me about why we want commercial companies sending our science experiments. Why don't we send them ourselves?
Well, you know, NASA is really good at sending robotic science probes throughout the solar system, but it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of time. And for our big push to do science and technology on the moon as part of Artemis, we wanted to take a new approach. We wanted to tap into the new ideas, the entrepreneurial spirit, and all the engineering innovation that these small companies and startup companies bring in the United States. We think they can help make the overall moon effort much better.
But isn't it riskier for us to depend on others versus us doing it ourselves?
You know, there is a different level of risk that we all had to understand and agree to when we started down this. Like I said, we understand how to do robotic science missions at NASA, but we do know that these companies have a lot of good, interesting ideas. By partnering with several different companies for different lunar landing missions, we get to see all their individual strengths, their different technical approaches, but at the same time, we don't get the level of information and we don't have the level of control or direction that we're used to having at NASA. But we think that trade is really worth it.
But why is it so important for us to send science before we send astronauts? We didn't do that before with the Apollo program.
Well, it's been many decades since Apollo, and there were many, many unanswered scientific questions about the moon, not just about the moon itself, but how the moon is almost a time machine to look back to see what happened at Earth in the earliest ages of Earth. So, for example, we can do studies at the moon to try to determine when did all those last big meteor impacts take place? Because if we see them in the moon, they actually happened at the same time at Earth, maybe around the same time life was forming at Earth. You could also look at the moon, and we might be interested in using water ice that's at the south pole of the moon, we expect, for our astronauts in the future. But understanding how that ice got there, how that water got there in the first place, will help us understand how do we have water at Earth that we get to use today.
Real quick, is there anything in particular that you are most excited about discovering on the moon?
Oh, well, there's just so many things. There have been scientific questions for decades that people, scientists in the United States, around the world, have been dying to get back to the surface of the moon to do. We've sent many probes in orbit around the moon, like Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, but they look at it from afar. This is going to be our first chance to go back and really make those measurements and really touch the surface and see what's really there.
Joel, thank you so much. I know we have ambitious goals here at NASA. I can't wait to see what we do.
Oh, thank you. This is an exciting day.
Yes, thank you so much. All right, so let's head back over to ULA's Amanda Sterling for another update on the Vulcan rocket.
Things continue to go as planned as we look forward to the launch of ULA's first Vulcan rocket. We're still holding at T-minus 7 minutes as part of our planned 60-minute hold, and the team is not working any issues at this time. The Vulcan booster is fueled to flight level with super chilled liquid oxygen and liquid methane. Soon, Centaur topping to flight levels will begin, and the ULA team is on track for an on-time liftoff at 2:18:38 a.m. Eastern. We're about 5 minutes away from Space Launch Delta 45's final weather briefing. At the moment, our weather continues to look good through the 45-minute launch window we have available this morning. The excitement is building here in ULA's Advanced Spaceflight Operations Center as we get closer to T0. Back to you, Megan.
All right, we're about 35 minutes away to the opening of today's launch window. Inside Vulcan's payload fairing is Astrobotic's Peregrine spacecraft. Astrobotic is based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where folks there are laser focused on Peregrine right now. Right, Olivia?
That is definitely right, Megan. I'm checking in on our Peregrine lunar lander with our mission control team right now. You can see them on screen. A reminder that our spacecraft is currently sitting in the top of ULA Vulcan's fairing. Our flight director is informing me that Peregrine is looking nominal with temperatures currently at an expected 70 degrees Fahrenheit. We also monitor the environmental pressures around the spacecraft, and we're sitting at a good 14.7 psi. Things are looking good for launch. The spacecraft is currently powered off, but will automatically power on once it separates from Vulcan's payload fairing. And here you can just see the faces of some of the engineers who have worked many hours on Peregrine to get it to the launch pad today. Sitting in the middle left row is Flight Director Anders Solorzano. He is the acting flight director for this launch. And nearby is Alex Van Hoven. He is currently providing us updates on the spacecraft status. And Alex just informed me that the spacecraft is currently looking nominal. Temperatures and pressures are still as expected. As we continue to await launch, let's send it back to Megan at the host desk.
Thank you, Olivia. Again, Peregrine is flying with 20 payloads today. 5 of those are NASA's, and throughout the show, we will tell you about each one, starting first with the Linear Energy Transfer Spectrometer, or LETS, from NASA's Johnson Space Center.
I'm Nick Stoffel. I'm a physicist and professional.
The cutoff. Okay. Once again, could have copyrighted music on this. We always have to be very careful about this on these broadcasts. However, if you like, I covered the LETS earlier on the broadcast, but I will go ahead and give it to you, give you some information on that one more time. There we go. The Linear Energy Transfer Spectrometer will collect information about the lunar radiation environment, relies on flight-proven hardware that flew on the Orion spacecraft's inaugural uncrewed flight back in 2014. For those of you who don't remember or weren't watching those days, Orion actually flew in 2014 on top of a Delta IV Heavy. And this technology was first tested there. So obviously radiation levels on the moon are going to be very important. We'll go ahead and bring you back.
Space Technology Mission Directorate, our mantra is technology drives exploration. So if you're really going to create new disruptive technologies that change the world, you really have to work with a diverse group of individuals. And that means our small businesses, large businesses, international partners, other government agencies. Astrobotic is a shining example of that. STMD has been working with them for well over a decade. We've awarded over 40 Small Business Innovation Research Awards and our tipping points to develop new technologies for the mission.
So is that essentially like seed money? Is that how to
Yes,
consider it?
we're partners, right? We're partners in this. We say at Artemis we're going together, and we mean it. We're invested hand in hand in this.
And how have those financial awards, how have those helped Astrobotic?
So, for example, not only do we have science and different payloads aboard the mission, but actually parts of the lander itself, like our navigation Doppler LiDAR that helps with the guidance, navigation, and control, terrain relative navigation that helps to make sure that they can land in safe spots. You know, the moon can be very treacherous. And also the axial thruster engines on the lander itself are brand new engines that have never been flown before that we're testing on the moon together.
How does it feel to see technologies that your directorate developed, you know, helping us get back to the moon?
There are not words. I really get goosebumps. And, you know, the funny thing is, if you'd asked me as a child, of course, it's the amazing engineering and science feats that we see happening. But as a child that was raised in a family of a small business, doing this together with small businesses, this being our NASA and going together to the moon, is really just incredible.
Yeah, just what do you think about that? Again, that we're bringing in as many as we can with us back to the moon.
You know what I think? I think that means success. Yeah. I think it's going to require all of us and our mutual strengths to make it happen.
Thank you, Nikki. I really appreciate you being here, and I hope you see a beautiful launch today.
Me too. Let's go.
All right, we're just about under 31 minutes to the opening of today's 45-minute launch window. After Peregrine 1 today, Astrobotic will deliver another payload for us, and that's our Viper rover later this year.
Gary 7, to answer your question, no, they don't really have anything to do with this, aside from the fact that Boeing is one of the owners of ULA, co-owner and co-founders. But I believe that ULA got most of their talent away from the companies that founded them, because the level of reliability, the solid performance that we've seen from their rockets over the years definitely seems to be in sharp contrast to what Boeing's been doing lately, unfortunately. I mean, believe me, I am in no way happy to see this sort of thing happen to Boeing. I would love to see Boeing performing to the level of excellence that they used to in the past, but they just aren't. Yeah, good. The windows might not blow out. Yeah, very true. I can't imagine how frightening of an experience that was. By the way, right now you're seeing the Viper lander. This initial mission is going to be looking for volatiles, in other words, hydrogen, presence of hydrogen, and the possible presence of water subsurface on the moon. They are not actually going to be at the South Pole, so they're going to be looking for evidence of water in other regions of the moon. This, of course, is very important. The whole in situ resource utilization of water on the moon is absolutely critical to NASA's plans. Just vital. If they are unable to do that, it's going to be very difficult to sustain a presence on the moon, if not impossible. All right. Okay, audio going back.
Approximately 6 tons of propellant every second, producing 3.6 million pounds of thrust. We continue to march towards today's 45-minute launch window that opens at 2:18 and 38 seconds Eastern Time. The ULA team remains in a planned hold and right now working no issues. As for the Peregrine spacecraft, let's get another check of it from Olivia with Astrobotic.
Thank you, Megan. As you may recall, we are currently only monitoring the spacecraft's temperature and pressure while it sits inside the Vulcan rocket's payload fairing. And we're checking in with my team members in Mission Control and Alex Van Hoven, one of our flight directors in the very back row. He is providing us updates directly. Our mission team confirmed the spacecraft's levels are nominal and we continue to be ready for launch. And I'd like to take this time to say a well-deserved shout out to the entire Astrobotic team in Pennsylvania, California, and even a few remote workers. I'm sure you're all watching right now, and we thank you for your continued commitment to this mission and to lunar exploration. We really, really couldn't have done it without you. Now, as we sit tight for launch, we'll continue to monitor Peregrine. For now, back to Megan at the host desk.
A few minutes ago, I told you about NASA's LETS payload flying on Peregrine today. Now we'll learn about NIRVIS, or the Near-Infrared Volatile Spectrometer System from NASA's Ames research.
Just a quick update. Weather seems good. The news that we have from ULA suggests that we do not have any weather issues, and the mission is go for weather. Okay. The spectrometer that we're looking at right now is obviously not the LETs, and it's not the volatiles. That's something that we looked at. Okay, it's nerves. Thank you. So this, of course, this measures the surface and subsurface hydration, carbon dioxide, and methane, very important. All resources, of course, that could be mined from the moon. Also mapping surface temperature and changes at the landing site. It was developed at NASA's Ames Research Center in Silicon Valley, California. So that is the nerves. Let's see. Also, of course, as one of my particular favorite payloads on this is the Iris Lunar Rover from Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. The first rover to be developed by students and on its way to the moon. Thank you so much, Anders, for your support. Thanks so much for that super chat. I really appreciate it. Back to ULA.
We'll be back around 15 minutes after liftoff to continue monitoring Peregrine. ULA will just...
Oh dear. I guess we have, more music. Yep, we definitely have. Go ahead and play it. Let's give it a shot. All right, we're gonna try to bring you some footage from Astro Liz. who is currently out there. Just again, for those of you who don't know, Astra Liz, she has a payload on this rocket, first child to ever have a payload on a moon mission. And she sent me this awesome little message this morning. So happy to have received that. And now we're going to be hopefully getting a little bit of footage from Master Liz. Okay, an Iris rover video. That's what that is. I'm sorry. This is for the from the rover from Carnegie Mellon University. They apparently have some stuff about that footage that they themselves took. Once again, this is another payload that is on this particular rocket. We're getting close, guys. It is really close to go time now. This is the moment that so many people have been waiting for, with varying degrees of frustration. This has been a very long, hard, difficult road for ULA to get to this point. This has been a rocket beset with issues with the BE-4 engines, with the Centaur 5 test article exploding in a nasty anomaly that fortunately indicated a problem with the thickness of the tanks. That's just the steel wasn't resilient enough, so they had to strengthen that in Huntsville and bring it back. So yeah, this has been a lengthy process to get this rocket ready to go. Okay, we're going to be posting a link apparently to that video I was telling you about. Not quite as easy. All right, we're gonna bring you a media day video on some of the payloads. I'll just go ahead and we're gonna include a link to that in case you guys are ever interested. Should start a punk ska band. That's a good idea. I love both punk and ska for that matter. By the way, I like the name Gary 7. That's cool. So, boy, I'll tell you, getting tense. Let me tell you, getting very, very tense right now. Producer, we don't have audio from them at the moment, or do we? Let's go ahead. We'll go ahead and go back to ULA.
Contributed to the development from the Space Force to NASA and commercial customers. And so I was wondering if you could also talk on the partnerships that you had in the development.
Yeah, from the beginning, we partnered with industry partners who have expertise and capabilities to help us bring new innovative technologies, as well as to leverage existing technologies. So we brought a very capable yet new design forward that was a low-risk option. And we partnered with Northrop Grumman on development of new solid rocket boosters. The first variant of that flew on Atlas with a tailored version that was tailored to provide specific performance for Vulcan. We partnered with Rocketdyne on development of RL-10 and implementation on that, again, first flight on Atlas and then flying again on Vulcan. Partnered with Beyond Gravity on composite structures. And then we partnered with Blue Origin to develop a new main stage propulsion system, the BE-4, the first Oxford stage combustion engine developed domestically. So, industry partners brought a lot to the table for us.
That's great. And then as we look at what this has meant to the market, it's been fantastic. And I was wondering if you could share with me how the Vulcan design has evolved as we've started to look at the commercial market with Project Centaur.
Yeah, we had a really capable launch system to start with, and as we looked at the commercial market and the focus on LEO, we decided that a small change to our design, a small change to the upper stage would give us increased performance and ability to lift more spacecraft to the low Earth orbit and really position us well for supporting the Kuiper contract and our Kuiper customer.
Yeah, and the result of that was the largest launch contract ever. And so with that, Vulcan has positioned ULA to help support national security, NASA, and our commercial market. So we're very excited about the future. Go Vulcan, go Centaur, go Cert1.
I'm now joined by ULA President and CEO Tori Bruno. Tori, thank you so much for joining us on this monumental day. I've been a part of the Vulcan team for a number of years, so I know how focused the whole ULA team has been. Can you talk a little bit about the teams that came together to design, build, and now launch this rocket?
I am so proud of our people, and I think we had exactly the best possible team. We've got folks that designed rockets before, like Atlas and Delta, but we also have the majority of our team, people like yourself, that are earlier in their career, know the new tools, aren't sort of handcuffed by some of the conventions that we used before, and can do really creative and innovative work while also not making the mistakes of the past.
Absolutely, and Vulcan is such a unique rocket. What are you most proud of about this vehicle?
I'm really proud of the fact that we still service the high energy marketplace, a unique thing that is really important to our nation's security, that no one else has an architecture that will do that, while at the same time breaking all the rules and having the dial-a-rocket architecture that gives it the flexibility to reach down into that LEO marketplace and be very competitive there as well.
Absolutely. So we're getting pretty close to liftoff now. How do you expect to feel watching the Vulcan rocket lift off for the first time?
Tremendous excitement and anticipation. I got to tell you, I've done over 400 launches. They're all the same. I always get butterflies. This one's really special because of what it means to our country, to our customers, and to the team that has worked so hard, including you, Agent Sterling.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We'll let you get back to it so you can make sure you watch liftoff, and let's go.
Go Vulcan. Thank you.
Yeah, just a moment. I'm sorry. Shout out to Angus McIntyre. Just got a request to do that. So there you go. Shout out to Angus McIntyre. Just got our information from Tori Bruno to be expected. Now we have additional commentary, of course, from ULA as we're getting closer and closer to the moment of truth for ULA, for Astrobotic, and for Artemis. David, to answer your question, if this is successful, then no tattoo. Correct. And by the way, got my Team Vulcan fashion on today. By the way, guys, if any of you, I had to cut their audio again as usual. If any of you want this shirt, well, I've got it linked in the description. So if you're interested in a Team Vulcan Angry Astronaut shirt, and by the way, today I got a 10% discount for you under the code Vulcan24. Put in Vulcan24. You'll get a 10% discount on this Team Vulcan shirt. Now, Emonson, yes, you are on time. All right, so yeah, we got some more stuff with copyrighted music on it from these folks, so can't really broadcast any of that. Once again, to reemphasize, this is the first mission back to the surface of the moon for the United States in over half a century. The last time we were on the surface of the moon, I was a toddler. So this is a long, long period of time. And we've had lots of other countries land on the moon since us. The Russians did it in the mid 70s. And then, of course, India, and of course, China, and most probably Japan will be setting down on the moon soon, too. It is high time for the United States to return to the moon. Let's go ahead and bring ULA and NASA back online. Up, snap, here we go again. I'll tell you, they keep jumping back and forth. I don't think this commentator likes to stay on the air very much. I think she likes to flip over to the promotional stuff, which I can understand that. She needs to sip her coffee like anybody else does. Once again, let me go ahead and tell you some other things about the Vulcan that makes it a special rocket. It in a lot of new, as you can see here in this particular footage, a lot of high-tech new materials, a lot of new alloys. The weight of this rocket is much, much lower than the Atlas V. Therefore, the capability of delivering heavier payloads to just about any orbit is substantial. With the solid rocket boosters, this rocket is capable of delivering more payload up into high orbit than a lot of the new generation of rockets that are coming out. It can deliver a heavier payload to geosynchronous orbit than New Glenn can, for example. Heavier payload to direct geosynchronous orbit anyway, and to the moon than Starship can do without refueling. So once again, to do what Vulcan can do requires refueling or some kind of third stage for these rockets that they do not currently have. So assuming that this rocket can get into service today, assuming that it can become a practical, serviceable rocket today, ULA will have an advantage in terms of the types of payloads it can deliver. The bigger fairing, the much larger fairing allows for it to deliver certain types of payloads out to geosynchronous orbit, to the moon, etc., that other rockets cannot. And as I say, for at least a limited amount of time, ULA will have a competitive edge until, of course, big rockets like Starship and New Glenn come out. But even when they do, Vulcan Centaur will have the capability of delivering payloads to high orbits and to interplanetary destinations and such that a lot of these new generations of rockets will not be able to do without a third stage or without refueling. So it will have certain advantages as far as that's concerned. Well, thank you for the €5, 33rd. And we don't know. The tattoo may indeed happen. If we do have an anomaly today, the tattoo still won't happen until SpaceX does the job that they're supposed to do. But nevertheless, of course, I don't think any of us are really hoping for that. I certainly hope that none of us are hoping for that. I'm sure a lot of you feel that it would be great to see that actually happen to me. But, it would be very bad news for spaceflight in general if ULA were to fail today. It would be a devastating blow because ULA is never going to be an overwhelming competitor for SpaceX, but we want competition. We need competition in commercial spaceflight, and ULA has worked very hard to be able to accomplish that. How many boosters can you strap on? Up to 6, just so you know. Currently, for this particular launch, we've got 2. And then for the Dream Chaser launch here in April, hopefully, you're looking at 4 solid rocket boosters for that one, because that is a big ship if you include also the Shooting Star spacecraft that is attached to the Dream Chaser. That's a big payload. So Vulcan will have 4 solid rocket boosters on that one. So exciting stuff. We'll see what happens. All right, we're gonna get ULA's audio back here.
Is 15%. Ground winds are 15 to 20 knots out of the north, and the temperature is 57 degrees Fahrenheit. The primary concern for launch is the thick cloud layers rule.
Minus 11 minutes.
Player Yoshi, to answer your question, yes. Vulcan has all the potential of doing what Atlas V did. Perhaps even more, actually, because it has a higher payload capacity. So I think that between it and Falcon Heavy, we're going to have a lot of really exciting
60-minute
missions in
as
the
we
future.
continue towards liftoff. In a few moments, launch conductor Dylan Rice will poll the launch team for the final go to pick up the count. 29 engineers and managers are polled for system status and readiness to proceed. This is the final status check for all Vulcan vehicle systems, ground systems, spacecraft, and the U.S. Space Force Eastern Range. The vehicle system readiness poll includes electrical systems, hydraulics, pneumatics, propulsion systems, flight control, and propellants. Let's listen in as Dylan Rice performs the final polling.
The status check. Minus 10 minutes. Status check to proceed with terminal count, Vulcan systems, propulsion. Go.
Go for launch.
Go. Pneumatics.
Go.
LNG. Go. LO2.
Go.
Water.
Go.
Centaur systems, propulsion. Go. Pneumatics. Go. LO2. Go.
Here we go, guys.
Go.
Here we go. Michael, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it, and good morning to you as well.
Facility. Go. RFFT. Go. Flight control. Go. GCQ.
Go.
All right, guys.
Go.
Almost to the moment of truth.
Go. Umbilicals. Go. ECS. Go. Red line monitor. Go. Quality. Go. Op safety manager. Go. ULA safety officer. Go. Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
Anomaly chief. Go. Range coordinator.
Clear to proceed.
Launch director.
You have permission to launch.
Proceeding with the count. ALC. Verified T0.
Lee, to answer your question, no, I'm not, because I'm not there in person.
38 Zulu.
Verified.
Polling is complete, and the team is go for launch. From T-minus 7 minutes until liftoff, you'll hear Dylan Rice and the team performing the final steps in the countdown procedure. Several critical activities occur in the final minutes before launch, including verifying fuel tank levels and pressures in the booster and Centaur, and arming the flight termination system. At T-minus 1 minute, the Range Operations Commander confirms...
All right, guys, we are nearly out of hold. And then at that point,
25 seconds,
we're moving forward.
Go Vulcan,
all
go
these
Centaur,
years
go
of frustration,
this
hard
is the
work,
final status check of rocket and payload readiness.
setbacks.
At T-minus 7 seconds, Rofi sparklers will ignite.
The future of ULA
later by initiation of the
happens
launch
right
water
now.
deluge system. At T-minus 3 seconds, the main engines
We
ignite.
are at 7 minutes and
Then,
counting.
after seeing Vulcan's first ever liftoff from Slick 41, you'll begin hearing flight commentator Rob Gannon providing launch vehicle ascent data.
Godspeed, Vulcan. Let's do it. Oh my God.
This is Vulcan Mission Control at T-minus 7 minutes and holding.
Once again,
We anticipate releasing the hold in just a few moments.
enormously critical time here. This cannot be overstated. The future of ULA is on the line today, and not just ULA, Astrobotic, NASA's CLIPS program, and indeed the hopes and dreams of a young girl from Leicester, UK, who has a payload on this rocket.
We are go for
Lots of things riding on Vulcan in this early morning, Cape Canaveral, Florida. Producer, is the clock on with theirs, timed with theirs or not? Right. Just so you know, our clock is not accurate. That was a rough approximation as to when we were going to come out of hold, that sort of thing. We're going to go ahead and update it for you. We're going to try to get an update for you. Right now, they're just showing the capabilities of Vulcan and its ability to go with 2, 4, or 6 solid rocket boosters. And then the 2 RL-10 engines on the Centaur 5 upper stage. The Centaur 5, once again, a very sophisticated upper stage, capable of some pretty amazing things, including deploying payloads into multiple orbits. Originally, the idea was to deploy the 2 Kuiper satellites in low Earth orbit first, and then push Astrobotic to the moon. However, that didn't go through, and I'm kind of glad for that, because that would have added, I think, unnecessary complexity to the mission. So as you can see, we have multiple burns on the part of the Centaur 5 upper stage in order to deliver Peregrine to the correct orbital trajectory. And we are going to be here with you all the way. We've got, and so there's a number of points that we need to reach, a number of engine burns, a number of things that need to happen with Centaur 5. All of it, of course, needs to go well in order to send Peregrine to the moon. Unlike a number of payloads in the past that are capable of driving themselves to the appropriate orbit in case there's any sort of minor problems with the rocket, this is a lunar payload. It ain't getting to its destination unless Vulcan does everything that it's supposed to do. There isn't a lot of room for error here. So lunar missions are just beyond difficult.
249.
Okay, we've got ULA's audio back, and we are just over 2 minutes away from liftoff. Moment of truth for ULA coming up real soon. Okay, the time is apparently about 20 seconds off. Apologize for that, guys.
230.
CLO2 PLP started.
So we're going to have a liftoff here really soon. Yeah, I can't even begin to describe my tension. Godspeed, Vulcan. Please do.
$159.
Vehicle internal. T-minus 2 minutes. The launch vehicle, payload, ground systems, and eastern range are go for launch. For those of you just joining, I'm Amanda Sterling, and I'm your host for today's live coverage of the inaugural Vulcan rocket launch. The team is not working any issues, and we're on track for an on-time liftoff at 2:18:38 a.m. Eastern Time.
FCS arm.
Come on, guys. Come on. Let's do it.
120. FCS count started.
Here we go, guys. 1 minute and counting.
T-minus 1 minute.
Range status. Range green. $45.
Vulcan tanks at step 3.
BE4 start box, go.
Status check. Go Vulcan.
Go Centaur.
Go Peregrine. 15. Then
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. We have ignition. And liftoff of the first United Launch Alliance Vulcan rocket, launching a new era in spaceflight to the moon and beyond.
engines operating. 2 good SRBs hitting peak pressure on
Magnificent.
the SRBs. Everything looking good.
Let's go, guys. Come on. Let's go. So far, things looking very good.
We've got pitch and yaw programs.
BE4s and from the solid rocket boosters. Obviously, we have a long ways to go here, but things looking very good thus far.
Pressure on both engines. Good chamber pressure on both engines. Everything looking good.
Everything looking optimal on the BE4s. Come on, guys. Go, go, go.
Coming up on 60 seconds into the flight. Everything looking good. 2 good engines. 2 good SRBs.
SRBs, BE4s performing well.
Good, nice and smooth. And we've hit our first throttle point on the BE4s. Everything looking good. And we have passed through Mach 1. We are now supersonic, coming up on max Q.
Max Q coming up.
At max dynamic pressure. Everything looking good. We're rolling off on the SRBs. And we have cutoff on the SRBs. Coming up on jettison.
SRBs cut off.
And approximately 30 seconds.
Okay, here goes the jettison. Come on, baby.
15 seconds to SRB jet. BE4s continue to operate now.
So far, BE4s working like a charm.
Seeing expected PU activity on the booster mains.
Go, 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 go.
And we have.
And there go the SRBs.
Of both SRBs. Everything looking good. BE4s continue to operate normally. Coming up on 2 minutes into the mission. We are now 17 miles in altitude.
We just heard confirmation of solid rocket booster jettison. We have about 3 minutes until we reach our next mission event, booster engine cutoff.
BE4s so far looking good.
PU correcting towards a nominal MR. Everything looking good. Both engines continue to burn normally.
Still have a lengthy burn ahead of us on the BE4s.
And we now weigh approximately half of our liftoff weight. Everything looking good.
About halfway through the booster
and we
burn.
fired the power valve, activating the reaction control system. On the upper stage, pressures are rising.
As of just less than a minute ago, Vulcan had already gobbled up 318,000 kilograms of propellant. It's amazing how much propellant it requires just to get into space, let alone to the moon.
Vehicles continue to fly down the center of the range track, everything looking good. 33 miles in altitude, 52 miles downrange, traveling at 4,000
ULA is continuing to provide very good updates on this, very consistent updates.
You see excellent performance out of the BE4s.
As of 22 seconds ago, the BE4s are still doing very well. Everything is still going as planned. Everything looks optimal.
Vehicle steadily accelerating, a little over 2 Gs at this time. Good body rates. Nice and smooth operation of the booster. 47 miles in altitude, 95 miles downrange at 5,500 miles per hour. Engines continue to burn normally. Everything looking good.
No problems thus far, guys. The BE4s, at least currently, appear to be doing what they're supposed to do. And you're right, Mike. We are past the Kármán line. Vulcan Centaur is into space.
The Kármán line. Next mark we're looking for is boost phase chill down on the Centaur main engines.
As of 11 seconds ago, ULA reports that BE4s are continuing to burn normally. No problems. And we are nearing main engine cutoff. Not too much longer before that happens.
Coming up to the end of boost phase, approximately 10 seconds to BECO. Throttle down in preparation for BECO. We've completed boost phase chill down. And we have
Cut off of the BE4 engines.
coming up on Vulcan Centaur separation.
We're about to have, with the rocket is now about to separate.
We have Vulcan
Separation accomplished. Now we got those RL10s need to fire up. Let's see if it goes. RL10s, yes.
Experiencing a bit of data loss here. We've recovered the data. It's like Centaur engines are up and running normally, good steady state pressure, and we've just
The new Aerojet Rocketdyne engines appear to be functioning normally. Fairing just fell away.
Good steady state operation.
As of 38 seconds ago, ignition of Centaur 5 upper stage and payload fairing jettison is confirmed. Vehicle now weighs less than 10% of its liftoff mass.
This is Vulcan Mission Control at T+.
Everything is looking good, guys. I am feeling cautiously optimistic now because we have a successful ignition of the RL10s. However, these things need to cut off and they need to light again. They need to cut off and they need to light again. There's still a lot of things yet to happen with this mission. And we are going to stay with you through the whole thing until Peregrine is delivered into its proper trajectory on its translunar injection orbit. And after that, it's going to be a considerable amount of time, before about a month or so, before Peregrine is actually going to be able to reach its objective. This is not a direct flight. It's more one of those gradual, utilizing gravity, etc., gravity assist, that sort of thing, in order to get to its destination. It'll be a while before Peregrine gets to its destination. All right, RL10s are burning, no problems thus far. The first burn by Centaur 5 is actually going to last 10.5 minutes. And this will be placing the Centaur 5 upper stage into a parking orbit around Earth. Thus far, things are looking really good. I tell you, I currently could not be more thrilled. Things are, man, how exciting. How beautiful was that launch, that nighttime launch. Wow. Amazing indeed. Right now, I'm not safe from the tattoo yet. But of course, that is very much a secondary concern to me. The main thing is this going to complete all of the necessary burns? Is everything going to happen with the Centaur 5 upper stage that should happen? This is a very sophisticated upper stage that has lots of new instrumentation, lots of new computers, lots of new and the Aerojet Rocketdyne RL10s are an upgraded version, improved with improved thrust, and thus far those seem to be performing just as well as the BE4s did. Again, after... Oh, sure. Let me go ahead and let you guys know what the whole tattoo thing is about, for those of you who are fairly new to my channel. A while ago, I was trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. And so what I did is I put a challenge up whereby, number one, I had to get to 100,000 subscribers. And number two, if Starship managed to achieve a successful orbital mission before Vulcan Centaur could send Peregrine on its way to the moon, then I would tattoo SpaceX fanboy on my butt. I was that confident that Vulcan Centaur was a more mature system and would be capable of delivering its payload before Starship would be able to orbit the Earth. And right now, it's looking like that I may win my bet, but again, there's a lot that still needs to happen before Peregrine is going to be safely on its way to the moon. Peregrine doesn't need to land on the moon successfully for me to win the bet, because Peregrine's landing is not a ULA responsibility. That's Astrobotic handling that part of the mission. But Vulcan has to get Peregrine on the proper trajectory on its way safely to the moon for me to win the bet. So we'll see. But that is the deal. Actually the Blue Origin mug launch situation is something that I'm going to be doing through a friend of mine in Liverpool. I actually did do a combined Starliner Blue Origin launch with fireworks in Liverpool in 2022. And I broadcasted it live, but it didn't work out the best. The broadcast quality wasn't that great, etc. So we're gonna give that another shot. But yeah, I actually did do a Starliner / Blue Origin and blow the hell out of it with fireworks thing in 2022. And yeah, I just so you know, the explosives that were used to blow the hell out of all of that was the equivalent of several sticks of dynamite. That fellow owns a fireworks store, and he kind of went over the top. We actually had a police helicopter come flying over after we did that. But fortunately, the police know him very well in Liverpool. I'm just saying, it's that crazy bloke with his fireworks again. So. All right, let's try to get you another update. Yeah, everything's still going very smoothly. No real problems with this particular burn. The RL-10 is an amazing engine, something that's been powering the upper stages of rockets for decades now. However, this is an upgraded RL-10 with more thrust. So a lot of new components in this rocket, a lot of new things that could have gone wrong. Thus far, everything seems to be going right. Boyd Jensen, thank you so much for the $10. Really, really appreciate your support. Thank you so much. That is a good point. There are some ashes destined for a solar orbit, not all of them, but yeah. And then the lander headed towards the moon is not a student project. It is rather, there's a rover on it that's a student project, but the entire lander is actually a commercial mission from Astrobotic. It actually has 20 payloads on board, 2 of which are from Carnegie Mellon University, but the vast majority of them, well, no, a lot of them are from NASA. And then, of course, we have payloads from around the world also. All right, thus far, this is looking really good. However, another really key moment for this mission is going to be that second burn. Will the engines relight as they are supposed to? That, of course, is going to be a key moment. So this particular burn is just to put Centaur 5 into a parking orbit, and then there will be 2 subsequent burns to get Peregrine onto the proper trajectories. Matt, yes, they will. ULA will indeed renew their refueling ambitions. They've been talking about that for a while lately. Actually, it's for those of you unfamiliar with that. ULA had actually pioneered the idea of putting up a fuel depot to improve the amount of payload that we could deliver to interplanetary destinations. That idea was stymied by politicians that wanted SLS to be our solution for the future because they had so much money and so many workers who were employed in building SLS, and they used their political influence to shut down ULA's refueling depot efforts. And since that time, however, SpaceX is now embarking on refueling, low Earth orbit refueling, and in order to compete, others have to do the same. And the politicians who had shut down these efforts, a lot of them are fortunately no longer in office. So now ULA can proceed with refueling their refueling ambitions as well. We're 15 minutes and 30 seconds into the mission. We're about to get a cutoff. Yes. That's great. We're getting all kinds of, oh, that's just delightful. I got a picture of Tori Bruno together with Astroliz's grandma and things. Everybody, success is celebrating a successful launch indeed. This is super exciting stuff happening right now. Just fantastic. All right, so we got about 27 minutes before we're going to get another burn. So this is going to be a lengthy process. I'm going to be stepping away for a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and brew myself some more coffee, try to catch my third wind here, and continue bringing you coverage of this extremely critical launch. We still have a ways to go. We have 2 more burns left coming from Centaur 5 in order to deliver Peregrine onto its planned trajectory headed for the moon. First lunar mission, first mission to the surface of the moon since Gene Cernan said goodbye to the moon all those years ago. I'll be back soon.
It was a magnificent sight. Leaves me speechless, apparently. Just really lighting up the night sky and loud enough to set off a couple of car alarms nearby. CLPS is short for Commercial Lunar Payload Services. It's a new model in which NASA contracts space on commercial missions to send science experiments to the moon ahead of us landing astronauts there. For today's launch, NASA selected Astrobotic to deliver its 5 lunar instruments. This is the first mission for its Peregrine spacecraft. Today was also the first launch of ULA's new Vulcan rocket. Again, congrats. It lifted off from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station's Launch Pad 41. Our broadcast here on NASA TV will continue through Peregrine acquisition of signal, which is expected to happen at the earliest around 3:17 a.m. Eastern Time. With me now is Sandra Connolly. She's the Deputy Associate Administrator of NASA's Science Mission Directorate. Good morning, and thanks for being here, Sandra.
Good morning. It's a thrill to be here.
Yeah, what did you think of the launch?
It was amazing. Yet another beautiful ULA launch. Totally spectacular, and it's super exciting to know that now our Peregrine 1 lander is on its way to the moon, and in about 2.5 weeks it's going to go into orbit. And a few weeks later from that, in mid to late February, we're going to actually see it land. And that will be the first, well, actually it'll be one of the early landings on the moon since Apollo, over 50 years, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. U.S. landings on the moon.
Yeah, it is. And the CLPS is new as well. So talk to us a little bit about this program. We're using commercial companies to send science instruments to the moon for us. Why is that?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this program. It is a game-changing program for us. It really is leveraging industry in new ways. As you've probably seen, I mean, the whole aerospace industry has evolved over this last decade in amazing ways, and I think this is just yet one more step in doing so. So our commercial partners are actually delivering a service. They're delivering our payloads and other organizational payloads, whether it's other companies, whether it's international partners. Basically, anybody who wants to procure the service can deliver a payload to the moon using the CLIPS program.
And so there are 20 payloads flying on the Peregrine spacecraft right now. 5 of those are NASA's. Can you tell me a little bit about what they'll be studying once they get to the moon?
Yeah, so again, amazing service. So our payloads are going to be studying things, including understanding, studying water, studying the volatiles or the resources on the moon, studying the atmosphere, and also the radiation environment to help inform us for the future when we have humans back on the moon.
Sandra, thank you so much. I'm excited to see what we do with this initiative and this launch here today.
Thank you so much, and let me just say, go Vulcan and go Peregrine 1.
Yes, you can totally say that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so when Peregrine lands on the near side of B, one of the first lunar landings for the U.S. since the final Apollo mission over 50 years ago. Let's head back over to Astrobotics, Olivia Chapla.
Thanks, Megan, and what a great day so far. So for those of you just tuning in, I wanted to reintroduce myself. I'm Olivia Chapla, Director of Marketing and Communications for Astrobotic. Astrobotic is a space company with our primary headquarters in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we've just watched our Peregrine lunar lander rocket into space aboard a United Launch Alliance Vulcan rocket. This Peregrine spacecraft's mission is to carry 20 payloads or cargo to the lunar surface from 7 different countries. 6 of those nations have never reached the moon before. Our aim is to autonomously land on the lunar surface a few weeks from now. We're taking the long way around, and we expect Peregrine to land on February 23rd, 2024. We've got all eyes on the Peregrine lander as it waits to separate from the Vulcan rocket in about 30 minutes. At that point, we will seek to establish communications with the lander. And now we'll take a more in-depth look at Peregrine's full journey to the moon with an animation. Once ULA's Vulcan rocket launches, we will then know the exact day the Peregrine spacecraft will attempt a soft landing on the moon. The first landing attempt could be anywhere from 10 to 60 days from launch. Because this is Peregrine's first ever trip to the moon, our team is not taking a direct path. Peregrine will first complete one Earth orbit so the team can get critical data on the spacecraft and test maneuvers before executing a very critical milestone, entering lunar orbit. Peregrine will orbit the moon at 3 altitudes. The first orbit will last about 33 hours. Peregrine's second orbit can be up to 35 days. The spacecraft's third and final orbit around the moon will last 48 hours. Next up, Peregrine will attempt a soft landing on the lunar surface autonomously. The team will issue a landing sequence that will command the spacecraft to enter a descent orbit. About 15 kilometers from the lunar surface, an exciting powered descent begins. While we wait for the Peregrine spacecraft to separate from the Vulcan rocket and begin that exciting journey to the moon, I have Astrobotic's founder and Chief Executive Officer, John Thornton. Hi there, John. I understand you are currently at ULA, just a stone's throw from where I am now, and we both just saw ULA's Vulcan rocket achieve liftoff with our very own Peregrine aboard. Tell me, after waiting for this moment for years, how are you feeling?
It's a dream. This is the moment we've been waiting for 16 years, and I'm standing in mission control, and we just had a beautiful launch. Thank you, ULA. So excited. We are on our way to the moon.
I can tell you and everyone else are in a really, really excited buzz today for sure. So tell me, what else do you think is the most important thing about our Peregrine mission today?
So this is the beginning of the dawn of a new era for the surface of the moon and how we think about space. This is an opportunity for commercial payloads to fly to the surface of the moon on a regular, routine basis. That means our nation's scientists, our world scientists, can access the moon in ways never before possible. And we are seeing the beginnings of that right now as we speak on our journey to the surface of the moon. Our first mission carries 20 payloads from all over the world. 6 nations on board the mission will touch the surface of the moon for the very first time. It's a phenomenal, exciting mission to be a part of, and it's a real honor to be here today, and I could not imagine a better start to the mission.
That's true. And what do you have to say to the Astrobotic team and to all of the payload customers who made today's mission possible?
For 16 years, we've been pushing for this moment today. And along the way, we had a lot of hard challenges that we had to overcome, and a lot of people doubted us along the way. But our team...
Good early morning to most of my viewers. Good afternoon, I think, to some of my viewers, or good evening to some of my viewers in the Pacific Rim. And so thanks very much to 1, 2, or to 12 for the tenor. Really do appreciate that. No Blue Origin fanboy tattoo coming here, but nevertheless, Blue Origin did indeed deliver for ULA this morning in a huge way. Those BE4 engines performed perfectly. And so even though China can definitely take the crown for having been the first Methalox launched rocket, it was a pretty small one. This is the first heavy lift, medium lift, whatever you want to call it, rocket sent to space by, well, I wouldn't say to space, because Starship definitely holds that distinction with the Raptors. However, in terms of actually getting up to orbit and possibly beyond, but definitely driving Vulcan into orbit, Blue Origin does hold that distinction. It isn't the same as the SpaceX Methalox, just to be clear. It is LNG, liquid natural gas, which is mostly methane, but not 100% methane. So it's not exactly the same thing that SpaceX uses, but pretty straightforward, or pretty similar, rather. So quite a triumph for Blue Origin this morning, and a long time coming. I've had a lot of negative things to say about them over the years, but this morning, those engines did precisely what they were supposed to do. And regardless of what happens with the rest of the mission, Blue Origin took care of their part admirably. And that's all I can really say about it. You know, there's no other way to spin that. Those engines worked really, really well. Now the question is, are they going to be able to pump those engines out fast enough in order to be able to accommodate the enormous cadence of launches that Vulcan is going to have to sustain in order to deliver all of those Kuiper satellites to orbit that they are obligated to handle? I mean, we're talking a Vulcan Centaur launch every 2 weeks in order to keep up with demand with their current contracts. That is a huge, huge hurdle for ULA to jump over. And of course, we also right now, assuming that the rest of this mission goes as planned, ULA is now an attractive company for a buyout. And it's very possible that they may go that route. Whoa, Joe, thank you so much for the $50. Man. Yes, it is a night for celebration. No question about that. Really appreciate your support, Joe. Thank you so much for that. So, yeah, it definitely a huge night for Blue Origin, a huge night for ULA thus far. And yeah, ULA is now, assuming that the rest of this mission goes as planned, they're a very attractive company for a buyout. That being said, though, I really hope that the government shuts down any buyout by Blue Origin. I really hope that the government recognizes what kind of danger that sort of monopolistic move could make. I'm going to make a very bold prediction here. If Blue Origin and Jeff Bezos buys out ULA, I predict that Vulcan Centaur will be shut down as a rocket by the end of next year. By the end of 2025, there will no longer be a Vulcan Centaur because Blue Origin doesn't need it. Once the New Glenn system is in place, why do you need a Vulcan Centaur? New Glenn can carry more payload. It has a bigger fairing. If it works as planned, then why do you need a smaller rocket that essentially does most of the same things? So I'm telling you, I am predicting that if Jeff buys out ULA, that is his intention, is to shut the company down and essentially eliminate a competitor. Because right now, ULA, armed with Vulcan, could be a very potent competitor for Blue Origin, a very potent competitor. What better way to get rid of that competition than to buy them out and then just shut Vulcan down? Once again, I could be wrong, but that is what, to me, seems to be the best move on Jeff's part if he wanted to gobble up ULA. It is my hope that we are looking at other companies buying out ULA and not Blue Origin. No, yeah, go ahead. Let's go ahead and learn more about what's happening here with Astrobotic.
And for a closer look at landing, I'm joined now by Mike Hennessy, Educational Director of the Moonshot Museum in Pittsburgh. Good morning to you.
Good morning. It's spectacular to be here today.
Absolutely. We saw a launch, right?
Yeah, and it was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to me about Peregrine and the spacecraft we have you on, because you know a lot about Peregrine and this mission. Why is that?
Well, every day I've had a front row seat at Peregrine under construction. I work at the Moonshot Museum, and we share a wall of windows with Astrobotic. And better yet, I've seen kids with their faces pressed against the glass, knowing they're going to grow up to become that next generation of makers that take us to the moon.
That's fantastic. And you also brought us some props here. So these are different parts, different materials that make up the multi-layer insulation. That's what goes around the spacecraft, right?
Right. That's the thermal protective space blanket for the craft. And we have a number of different materials here. This is Astro Quartz. It's a woven ceramic fiber, very heat resistant. We've got aluminum, which is great for reflecting solar heat. And this is also aluminum. Glitters a little more like gold, but
yes.
It's just aluminum that's been covered with a polymer called Kapton. And you can see it actually on our model here. We have of the Peregrine lander.
Right here. This is the multi-layer insulation.
Yeah, we've got the multi-layer insulation, and that's wrapping these fuel tanks, kind of like cosmic baked potatoes.
And why do we need all these different materials?
Well, the moon is a harsh environment, and it takes a lot of technical know how to land there. There's no atmospheric blanket like we have on Earth. So we need a thermal space blanket to protect against wild temperature extremes, boiling hot.
We had a question, just cutting in here real quick. We had a question in terms of who else would be involved. There's the private equity giant known as Cerberus that may be a buyer for ULA. There's also an aviation manufacturer known as Textron. Both of them have expressed interest in ULA, and those would be far better options for the future of ULA, for them to execute a buyout rather than Blue Origin. I really don't see Blue Origin having much of a use for Vulcan Centaur if New Glenn enters service this year as planned. I mean, if it doesn't, then yeah, they'll have to keep it around for a while. But again, I see Vulcan Centaur kind of being a dead rocket walking. If Blue Origin makes that buy, I really think that it would be better to have a different investor snap them up. I think it'd be much better for the future of the company, for the future of the people working there, and for the future of competitive space flight in the US and worldwide for that matter. If we didn't have a Blue Origin ULA conglomerate. And right now, as you can see, they're discussing things about the water at the moon, etc. Although Peregrine is not landing where the water is, not landing at the lunar south pole. It's going to be studying a different region, volcanically, a more recently volcanically active region of the moon. A lot of unknown and unanswered questions about this region of the moon. So that's where Peregrine is headed for. That was a recent change of plans, actually, that was made as to where they were going to send Peregrine. Joe, God, thank you so much. Hopefully Jeff Bezos will not buy ULA, but instead just keep selling engines and use that money to build their own rockets. Yeah, Joe, I totally agree. Thank you so much for these generous super chats. My God, really do appreciate that. They have a lot of money to be made off of just selling BE4s to ULA. Lots of money to be made off of that. And once again, I mean, why keep making the Vulcan Centaur a rocket that needs solid rocket boosters, which are not manufactured by Blue Origin in order to get to space, or at least to get big payloads to space? Why do that if you've got your New Glenn, your 7 BE4 engine New Glenn to do that job? Am I cutting? Okay, there's a comment saying that I'm cutting out. Producer, are we having audio issues? Okay, audio's yeah. There's some audio issues, chopping issues apparently happening with YouTube and ULA. Is one of the reasons why I'm doing a lot of the commentary right now instead of ULA doing the commentary. And let's see here. Okay, if you are experiencing lag and other problems, just refresh your browser. That would probably be the best solution to deal with any problems you may be encountering on your side. Okay, we're more than halfway, as of 6 minutes ago. We're more than halfway through the coast period. Centaur systems are reportedly still stable, and it's heading to a point above the Indian Ocean during this orbital path, whereby then at that point, that's when we will have a relight of the RL-10s. And this, of course, is a very critical moment. You know, there's no guarantee that these Aerojet Rocketdyne engines are going to relight. Of course, you know, RL-10s are incredibly reliable engines. They do a really good job, including on the relighting point. But at the same time, these are new RL-10s, improved performance RL-10s. So anything could happen. Okay, well, thank you for letting me know, Tom, about NASA spaceflight apparently experiencing some of this stuff as well. It may just be having some broadcasting issues. There could be a lot of people watching this broadcast overall, for all we know. I don't know. And by the way, for those of you who haven't been watching the entire time, that's Olivia Chapla, who's PR person for Astrobotic. Lovely lady. I had an opportunity to talk to her a number of times, and she invited me actually for the unveiling of the Peregrine lander when it was first unveiled in Pittsburgh. That was a really fantastic moment. Got an opportunity to check out that lander in person. I've actually seen it in person twice. I went to Pittsburgh again to do a lecture there, and Peregrine was still there. It was about to be shipped, but had not yet been shipped. And then we have the Griffin lander coming up next from Astrobotic that's going to be carrying a lot of important payloads, including the Viper water sniffing rover that will be looking for water ice at the lunar South Pole. So neat stuff indeed. Yeah, I agree, Rockin. I was super surprised when she approached me and asked me to come. And I have to admit, I was super happy to find that I was the only YouTube space personality there. Tim Dodd did send somebody there. He had one of his guys there, did a great job, by the way. But I was the only actually on-camera YouTube space personality who came to that particular event, and that was very cool. I enjoyed that, and I also asked some uncomfortable questions to Administrator Nelson about SLS. But yeah, it's really neat. Astrobotic actually gave a lecture at their facility. Some of their employees had come out actually to attend. The whole thing was just really great fun. Folks at Astrobotic are great people, wonderfully supportive people. They're the ones, they actually put in a request for me to be included in the accredited press, but NASA were kind of like, who's this guy? And they denied me. So I'm going to keep working on that and hopefully get included in the accredited press for Dream Chaser. I'm going to get a lot of support on that side to try to get me in on that particular launch. So I hope that I'll be able to be there. And of course, that will be a 4 solid rocket booster launch instead of a 2 solid rocket booster launch. So that could be pretty damned impressive. Mike, you're right. The Irish rover is indeed cute. It's, again, from Carnegie Mellon University, the first student built rover, and it's one of the 20 payloads on this lander. And as mentioned a number of times before, we have a child who goes by the name of Astraliz from Leicester here in the UK. And she is the first kid to have a payload on a lunar mission. And thus far, she has every reason to celebrate. All right, so let's see where we are in this process. Let's see if we have any new updates. Nothing thus far. My contact at ULA, she says that everything, aside from her nerves being shot, she says that everything's been going very well with this launch. My contact, by the way, at ULA, great person, and was personally involved in the engineering and design of the Vulcan Centaur. So a lot at stake. And I have to admit, I'm so happy for her and everybody at ULA. Okay. Checking in. We've only got, or we're almost up to our second engine burn. This is the critical moment. Yeah, let's go ahead and put ULA's audio back on and crank it up a little bit, please, producer. I think it might have been, some people were saying it might have been a little faint.
Station in Florida. ULA's inaugural Vulcan rocket lifted off on its first flight test at 2:18:38 a.m. Eastern, and all systems continue to operate nominally.
One minute, 1 second burn. And we've begun pressurizing the propellant tanks and
RL-10's working good. Near as we can tell thus far, everything seems to be going as planned. We have a relight on the RL-10s. That was one of the last major scary moments in this mission, is whether or not the RL-10s are going to successfully land At this moment, I think I'm safe to go ahead and say, if you're interested in being part of Team Vulcan here on the Angry Astronaut, I've got my shirts with a 10% discount utilizing the code Vulcan24 in the shop. It's linked in the description if you're interested in getting one of these shirts, the Team Vulcan shirt, and this long-standing bet that I have going at the moment. Again, this bet is not 100% over yet, but given the fact that the engines have relit successfully, looking pretty good. Okay. Right now, Centaur 5 is utilizing these and this berm to climb from the parking orbit that it was in into a TLI, or translunar injection orbit. Once it's in this orbit, then the only thing that really remains is perhaps another burn. There may be a corrective burn involved to make sure that Peregrine's exactly on course. And then after that, Peregrine is on its way to the moon. And then after that, we have a few weeks to wait before Peregrine will be in a position to set down on the moon. So Astrobotic's job is only just beginning. But ULA's job is nearly complete. And thus far, I couldn't imagine how it could have gone any better. So far, again, you can't say for sure. You never know until these things are 100% done. But given where we are in this stage with the RL-10s relit, performing well, it would appear that that all of the planning and all of the work that ULA has put into this rocket, into the booster, into Centaur 5, all of the effort Blue Origin put into the BE-4s, all of that appears to be performing as planned. Yes, I did say weeks, swap shots. This is not a direct to the moon kind of mission. It's going to be utilizing some gravitational effects and such, gravitational slingshotting, etc., in order to get it to the moon. This is one of those gradual orbits. And during that time, Astrobotic will be able to check and recheck the systems, check and recheck the payloads, etc., and prepare for a lunar landing. So yeah, we're looking at a little while before Peregrine will be ready to set down on the moon. However, we will know that this spacecraft is on the proper trajectory on its way to the moon very, very soon. We have main engine cut off. Centaur, you will indeed be doing the TLI, but Centaur will not be carrying the Peregrine all the way through it. It's technically capable of doing that, but Centaur 5 doesn't need to do that for this particular mission. MECO 2 confirmed for Centaur 5. Achieving, as of right now, we have confirmed to have a translunar injection orbit confirmed for the Peregrine. Separation in less than 3 minutes, guys. ULA is on the cusp of declaring a triumph. We just lost our feed. We're going to go ahead and try to recover it. Yeah, I'm not sure what the deal is, if it's with YouTube, if it's with ULA, but we have main engine cut off at this stage with Centaur 5. Centaur 5 appears to have carried out its task very, very well. And it's, according to ULA, Centaur 5 is now in the appropriate trajectory to deliver deliver Peregrine into the proper trajectory, the proper approach to take it to the moon. We are perhaps about 2 minutes, maybe a little less, 2 minutes away from separation. Again, it does appear that ULA is struggling a bit with bringing us coverage. Oh my God. Joe, thank you so much. Wow, these huge super chats. Thank you. With all the new young brain power in the space industry and planned full reusability, NASA should not be building up single-shot, massively expensive rockets. I do agree. Give the great work to you and your team. I appreciate that, Joe. Yeah, I agree. Big, giant, expendable rockets are not the way of the future. And everybody is aware of that. I mean, everybody is working towards reusability right now. ULA is working towards reusability with Vulcan. Arianespace is working on reusability with the Ariane 6. Everybody recognizes that reusability is where it's at. And the fact that SLS, has not caught on to that. Oh, stage separation. We have separation of the Peregrine, and it's on its way. Mission accomplished. ULA on the maiden launch of the Vulcan Centaur rocket has achieved a colossal triumph. An almost entirely new rocket loaded with all kinds of new components, new engines, all sorts of new modifications, so many things that could have gone wrong with this. But instead, it appears that ULA has delivered a huge triumph and has sent the first CLIPS mission, the first Artemis mission to land on the surface of the moon, is on its way to the moon right now, thanks to Vulcan Centaur. Wow. What an accomplishment for ULA. What a moment of triumph when they were backed into a corner where they were forced into a situation to where they had to carry such an incredibly valuable payload on their maiden launch because they had no other choice. In a situation that no launch provider really wants to be in, ULA rises to the occasion again and makes it happen. Go ahead, producer. Yes, my butt clap. Yes, my ass is officially saved. How about that? How about that? Well, guys, I want to thank everybody for watching. An incredible moment in the history of spaceflight today. Such an exciting thing indeed. Yes, what Mike is correct. Mike Burkhart points out that they do need to send this thing on one more burn for it to end up in a solar orbit to where it will be parked forever. Centaur 5 will be parked forever. But once again, that burn is a fairly irrelevant thing at this point. I mean, obviously, we don't want to be in a situation where it's going to come back and slam into the planet, but I really don't think anything like that is going to happen. Centaur 5 performed so incredibly well today. The BE-4s performed so incredibly well today. I'll tell you, it was a magnificent performance across the board. If you want to commemorate this, one more plug here with Team Vulcan. To remember that particular bet that I made a long time ago, and there was a lot of speculation going on even in my head as to whether or not I was going to end up winning that bet. Today, ULA, they could have cared less about my situation, I'm sure, but ULA saved my ass today, let me tell you, and I could not be more thrilled. But if you're interested in this shirt, it's in the description, link there, and I've got a 10% discount if you put in the code Vulcan24. Once again, folks, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I really appreciate all of your support, all of you tuning in at this ungodly hour. And I can't wait to see what Vulcan's going to be doing next after this triumphant maiden launch. So until next time, guys, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.